Here's Cathie Wood dropping bombshells. Check this one out.
I was around in that tech and telecom bubble. And what we saw back then were investors and speculators throwing money at anything. And you might say that the same is happening today. But if you take out, and you just said this actually, if you take out the movers and shakers, the rest of the market is trying to figure out, okay, who's going to win? There are some obvious winners now. Many of the, well, in the private markets, of course, NVIDIA, the chip players, TSM. In the private world, the large language models, OpenAI, Anthropic, XAI, Gemini is Google, so that's in the public markets. Those are very obvious. What we're seeing today that we did not see back then is founders leaving their companies and lured by Mark Zuckerberg to become part of an AI machine over there. That didn't happen back then. In essence, these companies that those founders are leaving, they're not going to be the winners. They're not, and you know that because their founders have left.
But there still will be a very nasty taste if this market cracks. I guess what I'm saying is technology meets market forces.
Yes.
Again.
Yes.
And there's a new generation of people that don't remember dotcom boom and bust, 90s. They don't necessarily remember 2008. And they do think that it's going to keep rising, or they haven't experienced the force of a market correction.
Well, I think that the most seasoned, shall I say, seasoned investors from 25 years ago, meaning 25 years ago, they were in their 20s and 30s. They are toward the ends of their careers now. They are teaching.
Right.
They are teaching the younger people in those firms, maybe not as much in retail, which may be your point here. It's retail that is real.
But retail is more important now because retail is more accessible.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons I founded
Exactly.
ARC, right? Was to be very transparent, to bring these young people along on the journey. What I think is different this time, and it's very dangerous to say that, I really understand that, having been an investor for many years. In the late 90s, the technologies were not ready. Costs were way too high. And I'm going to give you a few examples. We did not get the cloud until 2006. We did not get the first real breakthrough in AI until deep learning in 2012. The second one, even more important, that has created generative AI, that's transformer architecture. That took place in 2017. So we weren't ready for prime time back then. The seeds had been planted. Investors were throwing money at seeds. And a lot of those never blossomed, right? Some did. Some did.
I feel slightly embarrassed asking the next question, but need to ask it anyway.
Oh, do.
Do you see a downturn, a major, serious market correction when you look at valuations at the moment? Do you see one near term?
So there's a difference between a correction and a bear market. Absolutely, we can see corrections, and I can see a reason for a correction next year. If we are right, and these 5 innovation platforms are moving us into a productivity-driven boom in economic activity, if we're right, what will also happen next year? Interest rates will stop going down at some point, because a boom means activity is very, very strong. That may shake some investors up. They got a taste of this, more than a taste. It was a punch in the mouth. In 22, interest rates went up and innovation-based strategies crashed. Any long duration asset, including long-term bonds, went through a horrible time. So some people may, in that transition from falling interest rates to rising interest rates next year, they may get worried. But I've been through many cycles. I can tell you that innovation and interest rates are not inversely correlated. They were in 22, and that's because of the shock. But interest rates in 2017 and 18 went up. They went up at a measured pace. And innovation-based strategies absolutely soared.
Cathie Wood says the dot-com bubble failed because the technology wasn't ready, but today the infrastructure that was missing then is already built and working. Cathie points out that during the late 90s, critical technologies didn't exist yet. The cloud didn't arrive until 2006. Deep learning wasn't viable until 2012, and transformer architecture that enables generative AI only emerged in 2017. Cathie is making an argument most ignore. The dot-com crash wasn't proof that internet technology was overhyped, it was proof that the timing was wrong. Investors in the late 90s were funding companies that needed infrastructure that didn't exist yet. E-commerce companies needed broadband penetration that wouldn't happen for years. Streaming services needed bandwidth and compression that weren't available. Social networks needed mobile devices that hadn't been invented. The vision was right, but the execution was impossible because the foundational pieces weren't in place. So investors threw money at ideas that could generate returns for a decade. That's textbook bubble behavior, paying today for value that might arrive someday if everything goes right. Most of those bets failed because the technology couldn't deliver what was promised. Today's completely different because all the hard infrastructure problems are solved. Cloud computing exists and scales infinitely. Mobile devices reach billions of people. Bandwidth is abundant. Payment systems work globally. The foundation that the dot-com era needed is now mature and proven. AI companies aren't betting on future infrastructure, they're building on infrastructure that already works. This is highlighted when Cathie talks about founders leaving companies to join Meta's AI team. She has identified something crucial. In the dot-com era, talent stayed scattered across hundreds of speculative ventures because no one knew what would work. Today, talent is concentrating at companies with clear advantages. Founders don't abandon their companies to join a competitor unless they see that competitor has overwhelming resources advantage that can't be matched. The migration of talent data to Meta, Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic signals those companies have pulled ahead decisively. Cathie also understands that retail investors being active isn't automatically a bubble sign. Yes, retail can drive irrational exuberance, but retail also has better access to information and tools than ever before. The difference between institutional and retail sophistication has narrowed significantly. Retail investors can access a lot of the same research, data, and analysis that professionals use. That doesn't eliminate stupidity, and trust me, there's plenty of that on the institutional side as well, but it means retail participation alone doesn't indicate mania. The key distinction is whether the technology delivers value now or promises it later. Dot-com companies couldn't deliver because the infrastructure didn't exist. AI companies are delivering today because everything they need already exists. That's her first point. Now, when asked about market corrections, Cathie's answer reveals how she's thinking about the next phase. Cathie predicts a correction could happen if the AI productivity boom materializes and forces the Fed to reverse course on rate cuts, catching investors off guard. Cathie acknowledges corrections are possible and sees a specific trigger next year. The Fed just cut rates for the second time this year amid labor market weakness. Right now, everyone expects rates to keep dropping or stay low. Markets are pricing in potential future cuts through 2026. The Fed is cutting because labor markets are weakening and they're worried about growth slowing. But Cathie is arguing the AI productivity gains will flip that dynamic completely. If AI delivers the efficiency improvements she expects, economic activity will accelerate dramatically. Companies will grow faster, profits will expand, investment will surge. The level of growth would force the Fed to reverse course and raise rates to prevent the economy from overheating. Investors would get whiplashed. They're positioned for falling rates and steady growth. A sudden shift to rising rates would trigger selling as everyone reprices. That's the potential correction Cathie sees coming, not from AI failing, but from AI succeeding so dramatically that it changes the entire macro environment. This thinking is what separates Cathie from typical tech bulls. She's not just saying AI will be great, she's mapping out the second order effects. Massive productivity gains don't happen in a vacuum. They reshape labor markets, investment flows, and monetary policy. Most haven't thought through all of those implications. But Cathie also highlights 2017 and 2018 when rates rose gradually and innovation stocks still performed well. The difference was why rates were rising. In 2022, rates spiked because the Fed panicked about inflation. The increases were massive and sudden. Innovation stocks got destroyed, not because rising rates always hurt growth, but because the rate shock was so severe and unexpected. When rates rise gradually in response to strong economic fundamentals, companies can handle it. The companies with real AI-driven productivity gains will recover quickly once investors understand the dynamics. The ones riding momentum without substance will struggle. The irony is that a correction triggered by too much success would actually validate Wood's entire thesis. It would prove AI is delivering transformation productivity gains, not just hype. That's very different from a bubble popping because the technology disappointed. Cathie is positioning for a world where the technology works so well, it forces macro policy to adapt, which creates volatility, but ultimately confirms the investment thesis.
Most people pour money into ads people ignore. YouTube changes that. It builds trust, authority, and a real connection at scale. One law firm we worked with landed 33 clients in just 5 months, worth $330,000 from their YouTube channel. If you run a business, this is one of the most overlooked opportunities right now. Book a call with me below and I can show you how we can make it happen.